Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. I'm Rashi. I am a doctor from India and I'm currently on my USMLE journey to apply to my dream residency of internal medicine in the US. I recently took my step 2 exam, and since the experience is very fresh, I'm here to share my exam day experience with you all today. Starting with the exam day nerves to the post exam result anxiety. We'll discuss everything and I'll share my experience, and I hope this helps anybody who's currently preparing for step 2 and will be giving the exam super soon. So let's get started. So, one day before the exam, and I know a lot of people will not agree with this, but I was studying one day before the exam, and I thought that was the best way to calm my nerves. I didn't have anything else to do. Uh, I was just revising all the memory heavy stuff, and I made a video about step 2 preparation, or like in depth video about step 2 preparation some time ago, and I'll link it in the description so that you guys can check it out if you want to know exactly what I was studying like a week before to a day before the exam. So I was preparing in the morning, and then by afternoon my nerves had calmed down a little bit more, so I was doing more intense stuff by the afternoon and just going over everything, all the notes that I had made, just like short notes that I had made, to just, flipping through the pages and skimming through my notes in the afternoon. And by evening, I was pretty tired, so I just took a walk. Basically, I was keeping up my schedule the same as it was every day for the past few months, and I found that if my schedule was consistent, I was a little bit less anxious. I was used to going to gym in the evening, and since I was taking my exam in a different city, I did not have that option obviously, so I just took a random walk in the evening, just to tire myself out a little bit, and also take a break from everything, clear my mind, get some fresh air. Once I came back from the walk, I then packed my bag. Okay, so what you need to take for the exam, you don't need to take much actually. You definitely need to take your passport and then your printout of your scheduling permit. That is not compulsory, and you can show them like a copy on your phone, but I just took it as a just on the safer side. Then I packed my favorite thing, that is snacks. There is not a lot of time to eat, and so I packed first of all bananas, a couple of bananas, protein bars. These were like my major source of glucose and anything that would sort of carry me through the 9 hours of the exam. And then I took a little bit of coffees, like black coffee in a thermos, a clear plastic bottle, because now Prometric does allow you to take like water inside your exam center, but the container, like the water bottle, should be clear, like transparent. Yeah, I packed that, and then yeah, I took a couple of like peanut butter jelly sandwiches, just in case I felt like eating something, and I also carried like a little box of sorted nuts. The key here is to not load up on a lot of carbs, because you'll have a sugar crash later on and feel sleepy and lethargic. A tip here, that if you are carrying coffee and if you're planning on drinking coffee, make sure that it's in little sips, because coffee is a diuretic and it will make you pee and you won't be able to take a break in between. Now, I know that falling asleep like one day before the exam can be tough, and I knew that would be a problem for me. So that's why I sort of was preparing my sleep wake schedule according to the time of the exam. So exactly, like for example, on the day of exam, I would have to get up at around 5:30. So I, like, around 2 weeks before the exam, I started sleeping at say 10:30 and then waking up at 5:30, so that my body was used to that schedule and that rhythm. So that's why I was already sleepy by 10, and then I went to bed pretty early. On the day of exam now, I woke up early, I did my morning routine, like I have to have my coffee first thing in the morning. I did that, and I had the exact same coffee that I have at home, because I was traveling, so I carried it just for the sake of my routine. And I know I sound like Sheldon Cooper saying it. So once that was done, I put out a yoga mat and stretched a little bit. Reached the exam center like 30 minutes before the reporting time, just to be on the safer side. And the center hadn't opened up. Like, I was the first person to be there, and there was a shutter on the exam center. So yeah, but I reached early, and around like 30 minutes of waiting, the center opened up. I went in and I was just waiting till they called out my name. They asked us, like, there were a lot of students taking different exams on the day, so they asked all the students to line up. So they called out my name. I went ahead, showed them my passport and my scheduling permit, and they just like had me sign that I was present, gave me a key to the locker, and then I put all of my stuff in except for my water bottle and my passport, because I would be taking that in. And then they asked me to move to another waiting area, so there was more waiting involved. But I think ultimately, although that wait sounds like very long and tedious, it was a good thing because it helped me get used to the place, and like at least sitting there, I'm like, okay, I'm here now, I'm just giving the exam. So it helped me get used to the place basically. And then they called my name out to come in, and then did a thorough check, and then after that assigned me like a cubicle, and that's when I started my exam. The first 10 questions are the toughest, I feel, because like you're just starting out, you don't know how the exam is going to pan out. But I think towards the end of the first 10 or 15 questions, I was feeling pretty confident that, hey, I got this, I studied for this, and now I'm here. Or maybe I don't have recollection of the rest of the exam or how I felt. It was just question after question, and I was feeling much more confident starting my second block. And then the blocks then just rolled. They were mixed, some were good, some were like, I was really dreading the drug ad questions. But the blocks, I think the blocks that had drug ad questions had like 38 or 39 questions only. So that gave like a minute or a minute and a half extra to solve those drug ad questions. How I went through the actual exam is I would just like go over and like skim through questions very quickly, because the stems were pretty long. So I knew that time would be like, there would be a time crunch. But having practiced, I felt like I sort of knew where I was going and the speed at which I had to go through questions without having to look at the timer every 2 seconds, and that sort of giving me more anxiety. So I knew the pace that I was going, and I think it was going pretty okay. And then I would just mark all the questions that I didn't know, and I'll mark very liberally, okay? I'm not like that, okay, I'll mark like 2 questions in a block. I think in a few blocks I was marking like 10 questions. And then when I had solved everything that I knew, then I went over to the marked questions, and I kept like around 10 minutes at the end, like spare 10 minutes, so that I could think about my marked questions, and doing like not focusing or like hyper focusing on the questions that I didn't know when I was solving the blocks was better. It worked better for me, because then by the time I was doing all my marked questions and the questions that I was unsure about, I knew that I had already marked like a major chunk of questions, and there was nothing left really. And for drug ads, those were the questions that I did after I did my marked questions as well. So at the very end, I attempted the drug ad questions. I was dreading them because they are so long. But I think in the end, they were pretty okay. What else? I did read and go in with the mindset that the exam is pretty vague. Uh, I did not feel that way. I felt like the questions were very specific uh, in terms of about the information that they had given, and also in terms of what they were asking. And the only questions that felt a little bit vague were the ethics and quality safety questions. But I think like it's fair that they are vague, and they are vague for everybody. So I just tried my best to attempt all the other questions the best I can, and then like give myself a little room when I was solving the ethics questions, because ultimately it's your best guess. There's no set answer to any of these questions, and you probably would not have solved the ethics questions before. About taking breaks now, I had already given like 2 practice tests which were 9 hours long. So I had a brief idea about how I was going to structure my breaks. And I think I took a lot of breaks. Like I took a break after almost every block, or every 2 blocks at least. I didn't even do anything. I just went out in the waiting room and stood there or sat there and stretched a little bit, sipped on some coffee, and stared into space. Because I think when you're giving the exam, you're like so focused that you just need that change of place to switch your mind off. I sadly don't have the quality to switch my mind off when I'm sitting in the same place. So I had to move out and do that, like physically change space. And I sort of like structured oh yeah, so I skipped the tutorial and that's why I got like an hour long break. And yay for that, I would definitely recommend doing that. And if you're curious on what's in the tutorial, just look it up on the NVMe website. They have it's the exact same thing that you can look up online. I looked it up beforehand, so I saved like 15 minutes and added them to my break time, and that's how my break was an hour long. I took shorter breaks in the beginning, and then towards the end, I think I was taking pretty long breaks because I was exhausted. Like you've been sitting in the same place and doing the questions for like 6 hours, so you'd be exhausted by the towards the end of the test. And I was taking like longer breaks, like 10-minute long breaks, between the last 2 or 3 blocks. And then, uh, yeah, I didn't even realize when the exam ended. And I walked out of the exam center and I'm like, wow, I don't have to wake up tomorrow and solve UWorld again. And that's when the wait for the result began. Uh, but I think I felt pretty confident at the end of the test, and this is probably the first time in my entire life where I felt confident about how my test went. And I was pretty happy with my preparation and the direction of my prep, and then what showed up in the exam and how I could answer them. So yeah, I was pretty happy and I was planning my holiday after that. And the next few weeks just flew by, occasionally thinking about the result. Not occasionally, probably every night. And the result came. So I really hope that if you are giving step 2 in the next few months or days, watching this video helps you, because I was definitely watching these videos in the last weeks of my prep, just so that I know that everybody else is in the same boat as me. And I hope this helps and inspires you, and all the best for your step 2. I hope you do well.